Today's subject, status effects.
If you've played Elden Ring before, chances are that you've been inflicted with some of the local venereal diseases known as status effects. With the most common ones among the lands between being poison, bleed, frost, millennia's bathwater, etc. But what if I told you that there are 4 specific status effects that absolutely break PvP and have been doing so since the game's release? I mean, if you've been playing for a while, I suppose that by this point you're not surprised at all. The reason they're literally broken is that due to their special properties, they can be very abusable due to the game's horrible netcode. I have kind of explained already how latency works in this game in previous videos, but allow me to remind you in case you've forgotten. Latency is defined as the delay before a transfer of data begins following an instruction for its transfer.
What?
To put it in non-nerdy terms, it's how much time it takes for an action you perform to happen on screen. The further away your enemy is from your real-life physical location, the more ping they will have, and the more latency there will be. In low latency, usually the delay is not noticeable, and you can basically play as if there was no latency. But on high latency matches, the gameplay becomes much different. You may have noticed this when you hit an enemy in PvP. Your attack phases through them, and after a small time later, the action registers. That's the way in which latency is handled in Elden Ring. When you roll, the iframes of the roll, which are from the start up to a certain point in the animation, are on your side, so you have to time your rolls on your screen. The latency, however, translates to phantom hits, which are attacks that hit you when they visually should not do it. This happens because in their screen, the enemy hit you, and in the time it took for the hit to register in your screen, you did not dodge. However, during high latency matches, the network system basically allows you to spam dodge and never get hit. This happens because in your enemy's screen, even if they hit you during the portion of the roll that doesn't have iframes, the hit will take so long to register that you can basically perform another roll. And the hit will register during your iframes portion of the roll, basically negating the damage. It is so bad that you can basically make yourself immortal. Notice how Waifu is inside the hitbox of the attack at all times and barely gets hit. Had he got hit properly, he would have died instantly. However, although the damage on roll hits is negated, the status effects are not negated. This means that if somebody roll hits you with a poison weapon, you will still get poisoned. And in the case of status effects that can stun you, such as bleed or frostbite, you will take no damage, but you will get stunned. Now that we have established how status effects work in PvP, we need to establish why these 4 particular status effects make a huge difference and why it sucks complete rhino testes to fight them. First, we have Deathblight. Deathblight only has 3 sources: Eclipse Shotel, Fear's Mist, and Death Lightning. The reason for this is because when it procs on you, it's an instant game over. There is also a funny glitch that some gamers abuse to release their frustrations of being called pasta container at school for years, where you can backstab someone out of the Deathblight animation, only for it to proc again and repeat the process forever. And I mean forever, an endless loop of fatherless behaviour. But the reason it's the most lower on the list is because Deathblight is very hard to proc. The buildup of its 3 sources is not high enough to pose a threat, and in the case of Death's Lightning and Eclipse Shotel, you might even die before actually getting procced with Deathblight. But I guess that's only fair when you can potentially get unalived by a status effect even when you visibly, properly dodged it. Second on the list, we have Madness. Whenever you get procced with Madness, you will receive health damage, FP damage, and you will be stunned in place for 3 seconds. As I mentioned before, you will not receive damage if you get inflicted with Madness while rolling, but you will take FP damage and you'll also get stunned. It used to be quite troublesome before because some spells could insta-stun you with Madness and stun you again before the effect ended. This has been already nerfed. Other than that, there isn't really that much to say about it, because aside from spells, the other sources of madness in the game are Vike's War Spear, the kid named Fingerprint Shield, and the most dreaded by G9, the Frenzy Seals. There are no madness greases in the game, thank God, nor madness pots, so that's why it ranks a bit lower on my list. Third on the list, we have Sleep. Similarly to madness, you will get stunned and receive FP damage when procced with sleep, but the difference is that you will not take health damage. But the thing with sleep is that while it doesn't deal damage, when you're stunned by sleep, not only can the enemy pull a Bill Cosby on you, but since you're left in a vulnerable state, the enemy can also land more than one hit on you without you being capable of rolling out of the first one. There are also many more sources of sleep in the game than madness. The Cintrina swords are quite good dexterity weapons, and the Ash of War makes them inflict a lot of sleep build-up on hit. You also have sleep pots, which can inflict sleep quite well, and there are sleep greases that you can use to make almost any weapon inflict sleep, the most deadly being the Ripple Crescent Halberd. The reason for it is that this bad boy has a S scaling in Arcane, but it can also be infused by grease or spells. That means poison, blood, and sleep infusions will be amplified by the Arcane scaling, assuming you invested points in Arcane, you dingus. Duh. But there is a neat little trick that you can use. Whenever you think you're going to be afflicted by sleep, just jump. You will take FP damage, but it will cancel out the stun effect completely. Finally, what I consider to be the most dangerous of them all, Bloodflame. Bloodflame can be inflicted only by spells, the most dangerous of them all being Bloodflame Blade. It can buff any weapon that allows spell buffing, so it can be combined with many different multi-hit weapons and Ashes of War. When you get hit by Bloodflame, you get a passive bleed build-up for a short period of time that fills the bleed meter. The thing about this passive build-up, though, is that, unlike normal bleed, that when procced during rolls only stuns you, the damage procced by Bloodflame passive build-up will still apply through rolls. It is quite broken, if you ask me. The deadliest aspect about Bloodflame is that if bleed gets procced by the passive build-up, there is no way to avoid the damage nor the stun. You cannot roll it, you cannot block it, you cannot jump it, you cannot call up Miyazaki on the phone to remove it for you in exchange for feet pics. If you don't remove the effect with boluses, you will take the damage. And that isn't necessarily an easy task, considering you will have an enemy up your butt when this occurs. And things used to be much worse. Before patch 1.07, the applying of status effects when using two weapons at the same time was brutal. It was possible to be insta-inflicted with a full bleed bar in one smooth thrust of double naginatas. When 1.07 came out, the status effect build-up of power-stanced weapons was severely nerfed, and I think that was very healthy for the game. So now comes the part where you ask good old Auntie Ranni what to do, right? Your best bet, of course, is switching to the corresponding equipment to prevent the build-up as much as possible. This set of talismans work very well for that. You just have to pick the correct one for each scenario. In case you like to use two-handed weapons, Spiral Horn Shield can also prove to be very useful because it grants protection against all status effects. The effects of the shield will apply simply by having it on your back. The cured meat consumables are good for increasing your status defenses, so remember using them as soon as you recognize the threat. And the most important thing, learning how to use boluses from the menu can be the difference between life and death. It is recommended also to place in Quick Cast, the one that adapts the most to the situation you're in. Needless to say, you're going to have to improve your menu navigation skills to increase your chances of survival against status effects. I feel the need to point out that this has been an issue since the good days of old Souls games. FromSoft still hasn't figured out how to solve this netcode issue that affects the games in such a horrible way. We don't know if it will ever be fixed in a way that will make the experience smooth, but there's got to be something they can do to make it, well, not this. And that's gonna be all for today, my little Dorito Huffers. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, a comment, and share with your friends. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Tarnished, I'll be watching you. Put that soda away and drink some water.